The alarm bells rang through the galactic monitoring station Kepler-7 at exactly 3:47 in the morning, Galactic Standard Time. Senior Scanner Vexhai lifted his 4 eyes from his coffee cup and looked at the blinking red lights on his control panel. His long blue fingers moved quickly across the buttons as he tried to figure out what was happening. Vexhai had been working at this job for 23 years. He was a Xanthari, a race known for being very careful and precise. His people had 4 eyes that could see many different types of light, making them perfect for scanning deep space. In all his years of work, he had never seen readings like this. The main screen showed a picture of the Xerian Nebula, a huge cloud of colorful gas and dust that stretched across several light-years of space. Most of the nebula was beautiful, but harmless. However, at its center was something that made every species in the galaxy afraid: the Forbidden Zone. The Forbidden Zone was exactly what its name suggested. Nobody was allowed to go there. Any ship that tried to enter was destroyed within minutes. The ancient machines that guarded the zone had been there for thousands of years, left behind by a mysterious race called the progenitors. These machines did not care who you were or why you wanted to enter. They simply destroyed everything that came too close. But now, according to his instruments, there was something impossible sitting right in the middle of the Forbidden Zone. Vexhai ran the scan 3 more times, checking every setting and calibration. The results were always the same. There was a ship in the Forbidden Zone. Not just any ship, but a human ship. Vexhai had met humans before. They were a young species that had only joined galactic society about 100 years ago. They were small, soft creatures with only 2 eyes and no natural weapons or special abilities. Their technology was basic compared to most other races. They could not even travel faster than light without using the relay gates that other species had built for them. The idea that a human ship could survive in the Forbidden Zone was like saying that a paper airplane could fly through a hurricane and come out perfectly fine. Vexhai called his supervisor immediately. Within minutes, Captain Zethara of the hegemony warship Inevitable Justice was looking at the same impossible readings. Captain Zethara was a Saurian, a race that looked somewhat like the ancient dinosaurs from Earth. She had green scales, sharp teeth, and yellow eyes that missed nothing. "This has to be a mistake," Captain Zethara said, her clawed fingers tapping on her command chair. "Run every test you have. Check for sensor errors, equipment failure, anything that could explain this." But no matter how many tests they ran, the answer was always the same. There was definitely a human ship sitting in the Forbidden Zone, and somehow it was still in one piece. The ship was sending out a weak distress signal, the kind that meant the crew was still alive but in serious trouble. The signal was definitely human. It used their language and their communication protocols. The ship's computer systems were still working, which meant the hull had not been breached. Word of the discovery spread quickly through the monitoring station. Soon, every important person in the sector knew about it. The news caused panic among some species and disbelief among others. How could humans, of all races, survive where even the mighty hegemony battle fleets feared to go? Dr. Korthak, a senior scientist from the Hegemony Science Division, arrived at the station 6 hours later. He was an old Saurian with many scars from his years of dangerous research. He had studied progenitor artifacts for most of his life, and knew more about them than almost anyone else in the galaxy. "Show me everything," Dr. Korthak demanded as he looked at the scan results. His yellow eyes grew wide as he read the data. "This should not be possible. The energy fields in that zone tear apart matter at the atomic level. Nothing survives. There. Nothing." The human ship was called the Lucky Break, according to its identification beacon. It was a simple cargo freighter, the kind used for moving goods between planets. The ship was about 200 years old by human standards, which made it ancient and unreliable by galactic standards. Its hull showed damage from what looked like weapon strikes, but the ship was still holding together, More disturbing was what the deep scans revealed about the Forbidden Zone itself. The ancient progenitor machines that guarded the area were still active, but they seemed to be ignoring the human ship. These machines had destroyed hegemony battle cruisers without hesitation, yet they let a tiny human freighter sit there undisturbed. Captain Zethara tried to contact the human ship directly, but the interference from the Forbidden Zone made communication impossible. All they could hear was static mixed with fragments of human voices calling for help. As news of the discovery reached the highest levels of galactic government, emergency meetings were called on a dozen different worlds. The Galactic Council had spent centuries maintaining the blockade around progenitor sites like the Forbidden Zone. The idea that humans could somehow bypass these ancient defenses was terrifying to many species. Some council members suggested that the humans had secretly developed new technology that could defeat progenitor weapons. Others believed it was impossible, and that the whole thing was some kind of trick or illusion. A few worried voices suggested something much worse, that humans might be connected to the progenitors in ways nobody understood. Back at the monitoring station, Vex High continued watching the human ship through his instruments. Every few hours, the lucky brake would move slightly, as if it was drifting in some invisible current. But there were no energy readings that could explain the movement. It was as if the ship was being gently guided by forces that did not show up on any scanner. The most frightening part was that the progenitor machines in the Forbidden Zone were becoming more active. Energy readings throughout the nebula were increasing, and some of the ancient structures were powering up systems that had been dormant for thousands of years. It was as if the presence of the human ship was waking something up. Dr. Korthak spent hours studying every piece of data they had about humans. Their biology was unremarkable. They had no psychic powers, no natural resistance to radiation, no special genetic traits that would explain their survival. They were, by all scientific measures, one of the most ordinary species in the galaxy. Yet, here was their ship, sitting safely in a place where the most advanced civilizations could not go. As the hours passed, more ships arrived at the monitoring station. Scientists, military officers, and government officials from a dozen species came to see the impossible sight for themselves. The small monitoring station became the center of the greatest mystery the galaxy had seen in centuries. The human ship continued to drift in the Forbidden Zone, its crew waiting for rescue that might never come. And in the depths of space around them, ancient machines that had slept for millennia began to stir, responding to signals that no living being could detect or understand. Something was happening in the Forbidden Zone, something that would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about humans, progenitors, and the true history of the stars. News of the human ship in the Forbidden Zone reached the galactic hegemony capital within 12 hours. Fleet Admiral Korthak, one of the most respected military leaders in the galaxy, received the report while reviewing battle plans for a different crisis. When he read the initial data, he thought someone was playing a joke on him. Admiral Korthak was an old Saurian warrior who had fought in 3 major galactic wars. He had seen impossible things before, but this was beyond impossible. He immediately called for an emergency meeting of the Galactic Defense Council. The council chamber was a massive room that could hold representatives from dozens of different species. Within hours, ships were arriving from across the galaxy carrying scientists, military experts, and government officials. Everyone wanted to understand how humans had achieved what no other species could do. Dr. Lissa Andra arrived on the fastest ship she could find. She was an ethereal, a race of beings who looked like they were made of glowing mist. Ethereals were known for being the galaxy's best scientists, especially when it came to studying ancient technology. Dr. Lysiandra had spent her entire life studying the progenitors and their mysterious artifacts. This changes everything we know, Dr. Lysiandra told the assembled council members. Her form flickered with nervous energy as she spoke. The Forbidden Zone is not just dangerous. It is actively hostile to life. The progenitor machines there do not simply destroy ships. They tear apart the very fabric of space and time itself. She brought up holographic displays showing the energy patterns from various progenitor sites across the galaxy. Each site showed the same thing: massive energy fields that could unmake matter at the quantum level. No known technology could protect against these weapons. Every probe we have sent into progenitor sites has been destroyed, Dr. Lysandra continued. The machines do not just shoot at intruders. They seem to rewrite the laws of physics in the local area, making it impossible for normal matter to exist there. General Thexvar, the military representative from the Christek Union, asked the question everyone was thinking. So, how are the humans still alive? Dr. Lysandra's form dimmed with uncertainty. I do not know. By all our understanding of progenitor technology, their ship should have been destroyed the moment it entered the zone. The fact that it survived suggests either our understanding is completely wrong or humans possess some quality we have never detected. The Council began reviewing everything they knew about humans. The species had been discovered about 100 years ago when their radio signals were detected by a routine patrol. First contact had been peaceful, and humans had been welcomed into galactic society as junior members. Humans came from a planet called Earth in a small star system near the edge of the galaxy. Their world was unremarkable, not too hot, not too cold, with plenty of water and a normal atmosphere. The humans themselves seemed equally ordinary. They had no psychic abilities, no natural armor or weapons, and no unusual resistance to radiation or energy fields. Their technology was primitive by galactic standards. They had only recently learned to travel between stars, and even then they needed to use the relay gates built by other species. Their weapons were basic projectile and energy systems that would be useless against any serious military force. Yet, somehow, a simple human cargo ship was sitting unharmed in the most dangerous place in the galaxy. Xenobiologist Kethvar presented his analysis of human biology to the Council. Kethvar was an insectoid, a race that looked like giant intelligent ants. His species was known for their detailed scientific methods and careful research. Humans are biologically unremarkable, Kethvar reported, his antenna twitching as he spoke. Their DNA follows standard patterns found in many species. Their brain structure is typical for a thinking species. Their cellular composition shows no unusual properties. There is nothing in their biology that would explain survival in a progenitor zone. The Council spent hours debating possible explanations. Some suggested that humans might have secret technology they had hidden from the galaxy. Others proposed that the readings were wrong and the ship was actually some kind of advanced hologram or illusion. A few Council members suggested something more disturbing, that humans might be descended from the progenitors themselves. This idea was quickly dismissed because humans showed no signs of advanced technology or knowledge. If they were related to the progenitors, they would surely know how to use progenitor artifacts. Meanwhile, at the monitoring station, attempts to contact the human ship continued to fail. The energy interference from the Forbidden Zone blocked all communication attempts. Long-range scanners could detect life signs aboard the ship. At least 3 or 4 humans were still alive. But there was no way to talk to them or learn what had happened. Every probe sent toward the Forbidden Zone was destroyed within minutes of crossing the boundary. The progenitor defenses worked exactly as they always had, tearing apart anything that approached. Yet the human ship remained untouched. Dr. Lysandra requested permission to bring her most advanced scanning equipment to the monitoring station. She wanted to study the energy patterns around the human ship in detail. Perhaps there was something unique about that particular area of the Forbidden Zone. The Void Walkers also sent a representative, which surprised everyone. The Void Walkers were an ancient and mysterious species that rarely showed interest in anything. They lived in the empty spaces between stars and only contacted other species when something truly important was happening. Their presence meant this situation was more serious than anyone realized. The Voidwalker representative was called Silent Song, which was the closest translation their language had to a name. Like all Voidwalkers, Silent Song appeared as a dark shape that seemed to absorb light. When Silent Song spoke, it was through a mechanical translator that turned their thoughts into words other species could understand. "The humans have touched something that should not be touched," Silent Song said to the assembled scientists. "The old barriers weaken, the ancient guardians stir. This is not a rescue mission. This is the beginning of something much larger." Nobody asked Silent Song to explain what they meant. Voidwalkers never gave direct answers, and asking too many questions usually made them leave. As more experts arrived at the monitoring station, the situation became more tense. Several species began positioning military ships near the Forbidden Zone, claiming they were there to help with the rescue, but everyone knew they were really there to protect themselves if something went wrong. The human government on Earth was contacted about the situation. Human officials expressed concern for their missing citizens, but seemed as confused as everyone else about how their ship had survived in the Forbidden Zone. They insisted that the Lucky Break was carrying only normal cargo and had no special equipment or weapons. Dr. Korthak studied star charts showing the location of every known progenitor site in the galaxy. There were hundreds of them, scattered across dozens of star systems. All of them were heavily guarded and forbidden to everyone. If humans could somehow enter these sites safely, it would give them access to technology beyond imagination. The thought frightened many species. Humans were already expanding rapidly across the galaxy despite their primitive technology. If they gained access to progenitor artifacts, they could become the dominant species within a few generations. As the first day of the crisis ended, one thing was clear: the galaxy would never be the same. The discovery of the human ship had raised questions that challenged everything the major species thought they knew about themselves, about humans, and about the mysterious progenitors who had vanished so long ago. In the depths of the Forbidden Zone, the human ship continued to drift peacefully among forces that should have destroyed it instantly, and throughout the galaxy, ancient progenitor sites began showing increased energy readings, as if they were all responding to some signal that only they could detect. 3 days after the discovery of the human ship, Admiral Korthak made a decision that shocked the entire galaxy. Despite protests from dozens of species and direct orders from the Galactic Council to wait for more information, he authorized a rescue mission into the Forbidden Zone. The decision caused enormous controversy. Many species argued that risking valuable ships and trained crew members to save a few humans was foolish and wasteful. The Hegemony Council held emergency sessions demanding that the Admiral reconsider his order, but Admiral Korthak refused to change his mind. "We do not abandon people who need help," the Admiral announced during a heated council meeting. "Whether they are human, saurian, or any other species, we have a duty to attempt rescue when possible. Besides, we need to understand how they survived. This information could be vital to our understanding of progenitor technology." The truth was that Admiral Korthak had another reason for authorizing the mission. Reports were coming in from monitoring stations across the galaxy that progenitor sites everywhere were becoming more active. Ancient machines that had been silent for thousands of years were powering up. Energy readings were increasing at sites that had been dormant since before recorded history. Something about the human ship in the Forbidden Zone was causing a galaxy-wide reaction from progenitor technology. If this continued, it might trigger events that could threaten every living species. The Admiral believed they needed to understand what was happening before it was too late. Since the mission was officially unauthorized and extremely dangerous, Admiral Korthak could only ask for volunteers. To his surprise, he received more applications than he expected. Captain Zethara of the warship Inevitable Justice volunteered immediately. She had been the first to receive the reports about the human ship, and her curiosity had grown stronger each day. Her ship was one of the most advanced in the fleet, equipped with the best shields and weapons available. Dr. Lysandra volunteered to take her research vessel, Deeper Understanding, on the mission. Her ship was not built for combat, but it carried the most sophisticated scanning equipment in the galaxy. If anyone could figure out how the humans were surviving, it would be her. The most surprising volunteer came from the Void Walkers. Silent, Song requested permission to accompany the mission in a small diplomatic ship. This was almost unprecedented. Void Walkers rarely involved themselves directly in the affairs of other species. Their participation meant they believed something of enormous importance was happening. The rescue fleet was small by necessity. Too many ships might trigger stronger responses from the progenitor defenses. The plan was simple: approach the Forbidden Zone carefully, locate the human ship, and attempt to either communicate with the crew or evacuate them. As the three ships prepared to depart, Dr. Lysandra briefed the mission teams on what they might encounter. Her holographic displays showed energy readings from the Forbidden Zone that made even experienced space travelers nervous. The progenitor machines do not operate by the same physical laws we understand, she explained to the assembled crews. They seem to exist partially outside normal space-time. Their weapons can target specific quantum signatures, meaning they can destroy one ship while leaving another completely unharmed. She paused to let this information sink in. We do not know why they are not attacking the human ship. This could mean they have classified humans as non-threatening, or it could mean something else entirely. We must be prepared for any possibility. The rescue fleet departed from the monitoring station exactly 72 hours after the human ship was first detected. As they traveled toward the Forbidden Zone, the crews noticed that space itself seemed different. Stars appeared to flicker and shift position slightly. Navigation equipment gave inconsistent readings. Several crew members reported strange dreams, even while awake. Senior Scanner HFY, who had volunteered to join the mission aboard the Inevitable Justice, monitored his instruments carefully as they approached the zone boundary. What he saw made his 4 eyes widen with alarm. "Captain," HFY reported, "the human ship is moving." On the main display, the lucky break was indeed changing position, but not under its own power. The ship appeared to be drifting deeper into the nebula, drawn by forces that registered on no known sensors. Whatever controlled the Forbidden Zone was slowly pulling the human ship toward its center. "Increase speed," Captain Zethara ordered. "We need to reach them before they drift too far into the zone." As the rescue fleet approached the boundary of the Forbidden Zone, they followed strict protocols developed over centuries of studying. Progenitor sites. All weapons were powered down to minimal levels. Engines were set to produce the smallest possible energy signature. Communication systems were switched to passive mode only. The idea was to make themselves as unnoticeable as possible. Previous attempts to enter progenitor zones had failed because the defense systems detected ships and classified them as threats. By minimizing their energy output, the rescue fleet hoped to slip past the ancient guardians unnoticed. The boundary of the Forbidden Zone was marked by a wall of swirling energy that stretched across hundreds of kilometers. As the ships approached this barrier, every crew member held their breath. This was the point where so many other expeditions had been destroyed. The Inevitable Justice crossed the boundary first. Captain Zethara watched her instruments carefully, expecting alarms to sound at any moment, but nothing happened. The ship passed through the energy wall as if it was not there. Dr. Lysandra's research vessel followed, then Silent Song's diplomatic ship. All 3 vessels entered the Forbidden Zone without any reaction from the progenitor defenses. It was as if the ancient guardians had simply decided to ignore them. "This is impossible," Dr. Lysandra reported over the communication channel. "My instruments show that the defense systems are fully active. They should have detected us immediately. Something is protecting us." Inside the Forbidden Zone, the rescue fleet found themselves in a realm that seemed to exist outside normal physics. Space was filled with structures that appeared to be made of crystallized energy. Geometric patterns of light drifted through the void like living things. In the distance, massive progenitor installations hung in space, their purposes unknown and unknowable. The human ship was easier to locate now. Its metal hull stood out sharply against the ethereal background of the zone. As the rescue fleet approached, they could see that the Lucky Break was indeed badly damaged. Scorch marks covered its hull, and several sections showed signs of weapon impacts. But the ship was intact and still broadcasting its distress signal. Life support systems were functioning, and the crew was still alive inside. "Prepare boarding shuttles," Captain Zethara ordered. "We need to evacuate the human crew before something changes and the defenses decide to target us." As the rescue ships moved closer to the Lucky Break, Dr. Lysandra's instruments detected something that made her form flicker with excitement and fear. "Captain," she reported, "I am reading massive energy buildups throughout the zone. The progenitor installations are powering up systems that have been dormant for millennia. Whatever allowed us to enter safely, it appears to be triggering a much larger response." Throughout the Forbidden Zone, ancient machines were awakening. Structures that had been dark for thousands of years began to glow with internal light. Energy patterns that had never been recorded by any species started flowing between the installations. The rescue fleet had succeeded in reaching the human ship, but they had also triggered something that no one understood. Deep in the heart of the zone, something vast and ancient was stirring to life, and its attention was focused on the small human freighter that had somehow survived where all others had failed. The rescue mission was about to become something much more significant than anyone had planned. The secrets of the Forbidden Zone were finally beginning to reveal themselves, and the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Sarah Chen had been watching the alien ships approach through the cracked viewport of the Lucky Break for the past hour. After 6 months trapped in the Forbidden Zone, she had almost given up hope of rescue. Now 3 ships were carefully moving toward her damaged freighter, and she could hardly believe they were real. Sarah was a typical human cargo hauler, middle-aged, practical, and used to dealing with mechanical problems rather than galactic mysteries. Her crew consisted of her engineer Mike Torres and navigator Lisa Park. All 3 had volunteered for this mission because it paid well, not because they wanted to make history. 6 months ago, they had been making a routine cargo run between human colonies when their experimental jump drive malfunctioned. The drive was supposed to cut their travel time in half, but instead it had deposited them in what their computer cheerfully called an unknown region of space. What happened next had been the most terrifying experience of Sarah's life. The moment they appeared in the Forbidden Zone, every alarm on the ship started screaming. Weapons that seemed to be made of pure energy began targeting their ship, trying to tear it apart at the molecular level. Sarah had done the only thing she could think of. She ordered full power to the shields and tried to find somewhere to hide. But the Lucky Break was not a warship. It was a civilian cargo hauler with basic defenses. The alien weapons should have destroyed them in seconds. Instead, something impossible happened. The weapons suddenly stopped firing. Now, as Captain Zethara's boarding shuttle approached the Lucky Break, Sarah prepared to finally learn what had happened to them. She activated the ship's external communication system and tried to contact the rescue fleet. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth cargo vessel Lucky Break," she transmitted. "We have been trapped here for 6 months and are in need of immediate assistance. Our life support systems are failing, and we have limited food and water remaining." The response came from Captain Zethara aboard the shuttle. "Captain Chen, this is Captain Zethara of the galactic hegemony vessel Inevitable Justice. We are here to evacuate you and your crew. Please prepare for emergency boarding procedures." Within an hour, Sarah and her crew were aboard the Inevitable Justice, receiving medical attention and being questioned by experts from a dozen different species. Dr. Lysandra was particularly interested in their story, and her glowing form flickered with excitement as Sarah described what had happened. "You say the weapons stopped firing suddenly?" Dr. Lysandra asked. "Did you do anything to cause this? Did you activate any special equipment or send any signals? Sarah shook her head. We did not do anything. One moment we were about to be destroyed, and the next moment everything went quiet. The weapons just turned off. Mike Torres, the ship's engineer, had been studying the Lucky Break's sensor logs during their months in the zone. He presented his findings to the assembled scientists with nervous excitement. According to our instruments, Mike explained, the alien weapons did hit us, multiple times, but instead of destroying the ship, they seemed to scan us, like they were trying to figure out what we were. He brought up holographic displays showing the weapon impacts. Each hit was different. First they targeted our hull, then our engines, then our life support systems. But instead of doing damage, each scan seemed to make the weapons less aggressive. Dr. Lisa Andra studied the data with growing amazement. These are progenitor analysis beams, she said. They are designed to examine the quantum signature of any ship or crew that enters a protected zone. Based on what they find, the defense systems decide whether to destroy the intruder or allow them to pass. Lisa Park, the navigator, raised her hand hesitantly. Excuse me, but what are progenitors, and why would they care about us? The question caused an uncomfortable silence among the alien scientists. Dr. Lisa Andra's form dimmed as she considered how to answer. The progenitors were an ancient race that built most of the advanced technology in this galaxy, she finally explained. They disappeared millions of years ago, leaving behind automated systems that guard their installations. These systems are programmed to eliminate any threats to progenitor sites. She paused, looking directly at Sarah and her crew. The fact that they did not eliminate you suggests something extraordinary. According to the analysis beams, you are not considered threats. In fact, the readings suggest something that should be impossible. Captain Zeth Ara leaned forward in her chair. What do the readings suggest, Doctor? Dr. Lisa Andra's form flickered, nervously. The progenitor systems have classified the human crew as progenitors themselves. The words hung in the air like a physical weight. Every person in the room stared at the three humans, who looked back with confusion and disbelief. That is impossible, Captain Zethera said firmly. Humans are a young species. They have no advanced technology, no knowledge of progenitor systems. They cannot be progenitors. But Dr. Lisa Andra was already running new scans on the human crew members. Her equipment was far more advanced than anything on the Lucky Break, and the results it produced were disturbing. The quantum signatures match, she reported, her voice filled with wonder and fear. Not similar. Identical. According to every test I can run, these humans are genetically and quantum mechanically the same as the progenitor samples we have on file. Mike Torres looked around the room at all the alien faces staring at him. I do not understand, he said. Are you saying we are aliens? Because I was definitely born on Earth in a normal human hospital to normal human parents. Silent Song, the Void Walker representative, spoke for the first time since boarding the ship. The mechanical translator made their words sound flat and emotionless, but the content was anything but calm. The patterns repeat, Silent Song said. The ancient cycle begins again. The sleepers wake. The guardians remember their purpose. Dr. Lacey Andra turned to the mysterious alien. What do you mean? What cycle? But Silent Song had already turned away and would not answer any more questions. Dr. Lisa Andra continued her analysis of the human crew, but every test confirmed the same impossible result. By every measure available to galactic science, Sarah Chen, Mike Torres, and Lisa Park were identical to the progenitors who had built the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever known. This explains why you were not destroyed, Dr. Lisa Andra told them. The defense systems recognized you as their creators. They were programmed to protect you, not eliminate you. Sarah felt overwhelmed by the implications. But we do not know anything about this technology. We have never seen these machines before. How can we be the same as beings who disappeared millions of years ago? It was a question that Dr. Lysandra could not answer. The evidence was clear, but it made no sense according to everything the galaxy knew about human history. As the rescue fleet prepared to leave the Forbidden Zone, more disturbing discoveries came to light. The progenitor installations throughout the zone were not just powering up. They were trying to communicate. Ancient transmission systems were sending signals toward Earth and every other human world in the galaxy. Whatever the presence of humans in the Forbidden Zone had awakened, it was now attempting to contact the rest of humanity. After millions of years of silence, the progenitor machines were trying to resume contact with their creators. The implications terrified every species in the galaxy. If humans really were progenitors, then the most primitive species in galactic civilization was actually the most advanced. The balance of power that had existed for centuries was about to be completely overturned. As the Lucky Break was taken in tow by the rescue fleet, Sarah looked back at the Forbidden Zone through the viewport. Ancient structures were glowing with new energy, and patterns of light were moving between them like the neurons in a vast mechanical brain. Something that had slept for millions of years was waking up, and it recognized her as family. The thought was both wonderful and terrifying. Sarah had joined this mission to earn money for her family back on Earth. Instead, she had stumbled into a mystery that would change the fate of every living being in the galaxy. Behind them, the Forbidden Zone continued to pulse with increasing energy, and across the galaxy, other progenitor sites began to respond to signals that only they could understand. The journey back to civilized space took 3 days, but news of the discovery leaked within hours. Despite Admiral Korthak's attempts to maintain secrecy, word spread throughout the galaxy that humans were somehow connected to the progenitors. By the time the rescue fleet reached the monitoring station, representatives from dozens of species were already waiting for them. Captain Sarah Chen found herself at the center of attention she never wanted. Every major news network in the galaxy wanted to interview her. Scientists demanded to study her and her crew. Government officials asked endless questions about Earth's history and human technology. Sarah tried to explain that she was just a cargo pilot who had gotten lost, but nobody seemed to believe her. The idea that humans might be the inheritors of the galaxy's most advanced civilization was too important to ignore. The immediate effects were felt across human space. Human colonies that had been treated as minor outposts suddenly found themselves under intense scrutiny. Some alien species began viewing humans as a potential threat, while others tried to form closer diplomatic relationships. The galactic hegemony faced an uncomfortable reality. For over a century, they had treated humans as junior partners in galactic civilization. Now it appeared that humans might actually be the senior partners, with a claim to technology that predated every other known species. Admiral Korthak called an emergency session of the Galactic Council to discuss the implications. The debate that followed was heated and sometimes angry, with different species taking very different positions on what the discovery meant. The Christech Union demanded that humans be immediately granted access to all progenitor sites so they could reclaim their inheritance. The Ethereal Coalition argued that humans should be studied extensively before any decisions were made. The Saurian hegemony wanted to restrict human access to progenitor technology until its safety could be guaranteed. Some species suggested something much more disturbing. If humans really were progenitors, what had caused them to lose their technology and knowledge? Had there been some kind of disaster that forced them to restart their civilization from the beginning? And if so, could it happen again? Dr. Lysandra spent weeks studying the data from the Forbidden Zone, trying to understand what had happened. Her research revealed disturbing patterns in progenitor sites across the galaxy. Every major progenitor installation shows signs of a deliberate shutdown, she reported to the council. The technology was not destroyed or damaged. It was carefully deactivated and placed in a preservation mode. She brought up holographic displays showing dozens of progenitor sites. The timing suggests a galaxy-wide evacuation that occurred approximately 2 million years ago. Whatever caused the progenitors to abandon their technology, it was serious enough that they were willing to give up everything they had built. The implications were terrifying. If the progenitors had abandoned their technology to escape some threat, what would happen when that technology began working again? And what had become of the progenitors themselves? Dr. Lysaandra's research suggested an answer that no one wanted to hear. Based on the evidence, I believe the progenitors did not actually disappear. They deliberately reduced themselves to a primitive state and scattered across the galaxy to avoid detection. She looked directly at the human representatives in the chamber. Humans may not be descended from progenitors. They may actually be progenitors who chose to forget their own history. Captain Sarah Chen was still trying to process this information when it became clear that the situation was getting worse. Human ships had begun visiting previously forbidden progenitor sites, and the ancient defenses were allowing them to pass. Each visit caused more progenitor technology to activate. Reports came in from across the galaxy of ancient machines awakening, energy patterns appearing where none had existed for millennia, and structures that had been dormant for millions of years beginning to show signs of activity. The Void Walkers, through Silent Song, provided the most disturbing information of all. The Great Hiding is ending, Silent Song announced to the Council. The Sleepers wake. The ancient enemy stirs in the spaces between galaxies. When pressed for more details, Silent Song would only say that the progenitors had gone into hiding to avoid something that was not of this reality. The awakening of progenitor technology was sending signals across vast distances, potentially alerting this enemy to the location of the galaxy. As weeks passed, the effects of human contact with progenitor sites became more pronounced. Human crews reported strange dreams when near active progenitor installations. Some began demonstrating knowledge of technologies they had never learned. A few started speaking in languages that no human linguist could identify, but that matched linguistic patterns found in progenitor ruins. The situation reached a crisis point when a human exploration team on a distant world accidentally activated a progenitor manufacturing facility. The facility began producing devices that no one could identify, using principles that violated known physics. When alien scientists tried to study the devices, they found that only humans could operate them safely. Fear spread throughout the galaxy. Other species began to realize that humanity's humble appearance might be a facade. If humans really were progenitors, their friendly and cooperative behavior could be an act designed to lull other species into a false sense of security. Some extremist groups among various species began calling for preemptive action against humanity before they could fully reclaim their ancient power. These groups argued that once humans regained access to progenitor technology, they would dominate or eliminate all other life in the galaxy. The human government on Earth tried to calm these fears by offering to share any progenitor technology they discovered, but this only made other species more nervous. Why would the most advanced species in galactic history offer to share their technology unless they had some hidden agenda? Captain Sarah Chen watched these developments with growing concern. She had become an unwilling symbol of humanity's connection to the progenitors, and she received death threats from extremist groups almost daily. Her simple cargo run had turned into the most significant discovery in galactic history, and she wasn't sure she could handle the responsibility. The Lucky Break itself was moved to a classified research facility where scientists studied every component, looking for clues about how it had survived in the Forbidden Zone. But the ship remained stubbornly ordinary, an aging cargo hauler with no exotic modifications or hidden technology. Dr. Lysaandra's continued research revealed more disturbing patterns. Progenitor sites across the galaxy were not just activating randomly, they were following a specific sequence, as if some vast program was slowly coming online. Each activation triggered responses from other sites. creating a network of communication that spanned the entire galaxy. "It's like watching a giant computer wake up," Dr. Lysiandra explained to Admiral Korthak. "Each progenitor site is a component in a larger system, and the system is becoming operational again." The Admiral asked the question everyone was afraid to voice. "What happens when the system is fully operational?" Dr. Lysiandra's form flickered with uncertainty. "I don't know, but based on the energy levels we're detecting, whatever this system was designed to do, it operates on a scale that could affect the entire galaxy." As the crisis deepened, humanity found itself in an impossible position. They were being blamed for awakening forces they didn't understand, pressured to take responsibility for technology they couldn't control, and expected to have answers to questions they had never thought to ask. Sarah Chen often found herself staring at the stars, wondering what her ancestors had been thinking when they chose to forget their own history. Had they been trying to protect the galaxy from something, or had they been protecting something from the galaxy? In the depths of space, ancient machines continued their patient work, following programs written millions of years ago by beings who had chosen to become human. The Forbidden Zone pulsed with increasing energy, and across the galaxy, other progenitor sites responded to signals that carried messages no living being could understand. The galaxy stood at the edge of a new age, but no one knew whether it would be an age of wonder or terror. The only certainty was that nothing would ever be the same again. Humanity had reclaimed its birthright, but the price of that inheritance was still being calculated. In the end, the most frightening thing was not what humans might become, but what they had been running from for so long, and whether it was still out there, waiting for them to remember who they really were.
The alarm blared throughout the USS Defiant, casting red light across the command bridge. Captain Jack Hawkins gripped the arms of his chair and stared at the main screen. Dozens of unknown vessels had appeared at the edge of the solar system, their designs unlike anything humans had ever seen. "Report," Hawkins ordered, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. Commander Susan Wright, his tactical officer, looked up from her station. "Sir, we count 73 alien vessels. They're massive. The largest is about 5 times the size of our biggest carrier." Hawkins nodded. Humanity had prepared for this day for generations. They had always known they weren't alone in the universe. Now they had proof. "Open all channels," he said, "and get Admiral Carter and Dr. Martinez up here immediately." Within minutes, Dr. Olivia Martinez rushed onto the bridge. The xenolinguist had spent her career preparing for first contact. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her eyes were bright with excitement and fear. "Captain," she said, "are we receiving any transmissions?" Before Hawkins could answer, the main screen flickered. A face appeared, humanoid but clearly alien. Its skin was pale blue, with ridges along the forehead and cheeks. Its eyes were large and completely black. "Inhabitants of the third planet," the alien said in perfect English, surprising everyone on the bridge. "I am Ambassador Jetal of the Galactic Imperial Council. We have been monitoring your world for some time. Your translation devices will now function with our language." Dr. Martinez stepped forward. "Ambassador Jetal, I am Dr. Olivia Martinez of Earth. How have you learned our language?" The alien's mouth formed what might have been a smile. "Your radio and digital transmissions have been spreading through space for over a century. We have studied them thoroughly." Admiral William Carter entered the bridge, his uniform crisp despite the early hour. The older man's face remained neutral as he assessed the situation. "Ambassador," Carter said, "what brings the Galactic Empire to our system?" "Your species has reached a level of development that makes you eligible for membership in our empire," Jetal replied. "We will guide your further advancement. Your people will serve useful roles within our society." Hawkins and Carter exchanged glances. The word serve hadn't escaped either of them. "We appreciate your offer," Carter said carefully, "but Earth is an independent world. We would be interested in establishing diplomatic relations as equals." The ambassador's expression changed to something like amusement. You misunderstand. This is not an invitation. The Empire expands. The Empire brings order. Your world will join the Empire. The only question is whether you join peacefully or through force. The bridge fell silent. Hawkins felt a cold anger building inside him. Humanity had fought too hard for its freedom to surrender it to aliens, no matter how advanced. Ambassador, Hawkins said, perhaps you should learn more about humanity before making threats. Jaital's black eyes narrowed. Captain, we have studied your species thoroughly. You are violent, divided, and technologically primitive compared to the Empire. Your entire fleet could not destroy even one of our smaller vessels. Doctor, Martinez stepped forward again. We request time to discuss your proposal with our world leaders. You have 48 of your hours, the ambassador replied. Then we will expect your surrender. The screen went dark. Admiral Carter turned to Hawkins. Get me a secure line to all Earth defense commands. Now. Within hours, representatives from every nation met virtually. For the first time in human history, all countries stood united against an external threat. The debate was brief. Earth would not surrender. On the USS Defiant, Dr. Martinez worked tirelessly to analyze the limited communications they had with the aliens. Their language contains many imperial references, she told Hawkins and Carter. Their society appears to be highly hierarchical. They genuinely believe we have no choice but to submit. Then they don't understand humans at all, Hawkins replied. Earth's defense forces moved into position. Ships that had been hidden in underground bases on the Moon and Mars emerged. Weapons platforms that had been disguised as space debris activated. For decades, humanity had prepared in secret for this moment. Admiral Carter addressed the fleet from his command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. All ships, this is Admiral Carter. Today we face the greatest threat in human history. But we will not bow to tyrants, no matter where they come from. Hold your positions and await my command. When Ambassador Jaital appeared on screen again, after the 48-hour deadline, Captain Hawkins stood tall. Your time has expired, the ambassador said. What is Earth's decision? Hawkins stepped forward. Ambassador, I have been authorized to respond on behalf of Earth. We decline your offer of membership in your empire. Earth remains free. Jaital's expression hardened. Then you choose the hard path. Our forces will begin landing operations immediately. Resistance will only increase the suffering of your people. Before you do that, Hawkins said, I have been instructed to deliver a warning from humanity. The ambassador actually laughed, a harsh clicking sound. You warn us? With what? Throughout our history, humans have faced those who believed their superior technology or numbers guaranteed victory. They were all wrong. When threatened, humans unite. When attacked, we fight with everything we have. And when pushed to the edge, we create new ways to win. Hawkins leaned closer to the screen. So this is our warning. Leave our system now, or face the consequences. Jaital's black eyes stared coldly. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our ships. Your warning is meaningless. Admiral Carter joined Hawkins on screen. Then perhaps a demonstration is in order. Carter nodded to someone off-screen. Seconds later, a small asteroid near the Imperial fleet exploded. The blast wasn't natural, it was precisely controlled. When the dust cleared, one of the smaller Imperial ships had been destroyed. That asteroid was one of thousands we've prepared, Carter said. A simple kinetic weapon. Sometimes old methods work best. For the first time, Jaital looked uncertain. This changes nothing. The Empire has conquered thousands of worlds. You have merely guaranteed that your defeat will be more painful. The screen went dark again. All ships, battle stations, Carter ordered. They're coming. Dr. Martinez looked at the tactical display as Imperial ships began to move. They still think this will be easy, she said quietly. Hawkins nodded. That's their first mistake. The Imperial ships approached Earth with clear confidence, spreading out to establish orbital dominance. They made no effort to hide their movements or protect their flanks. Lieutenant Eric Johnson sat in his experimental stealth fighter, hidden in the shadow of a small moon of Jupiter. Around him, 24 identical craft waited for the signal. These ships didn't exist in any public record. All Phantom Squadron pilots, Johnson said into his comm, prepare to engage on my mark. Remember your training, they don't know we're here. As the Imperial fleet moved past Mars, Admiral Carter gave the order, all forces execute Operation First Strike. The battle for Earth had begun, and the Galactic Empire was about to learn why they should have run when humanity warned them. Lieutenant Eric Johnson led Phantom Squadron out from the shadows of Jupiter's moon. Their stealth fighters were invisible to Imperial scanners. The Empire had no idea they were coming. Stay in formation, Johnson said to his pilots. Remember the plan, hit fast, hit hard, and get out. The Imperial fleet moved with perfect order toward Earth. Their ships formed neat rows like pieces on a game board. High General Grekthar stood on the bridge of the Imperial flagship, watching the primitive planet grow larger on the main screen. These humans are foolish, he said to his officers. One demonstration of our power and they will surrender. A junior officer approached with a tablet. Sir, our scouts report minimal resistance. Their primitive vessels are falling back. Grekthar smiled. As expected. Begin the landing sequence for our first wave. Back on the USS Defiant, Captain Hawkins watched the Imperial ships advance. Commander Wright stood beside him, monitoring the tactical display. Phantoms are in position, Wright said quietly. Johnson reports all systems green. Hawkins nodded. Tell him to wait for my mark. He turned to Dr. Martinez. Any progress on their communications? Dr. Martinez looked up from her station. Yes, Captain. Their system is complex but follows patterns. I've identified a weakness in their encryption. They update their codes every 30 minutes, but there's a 3-second window where they're vulnerable. Can we exploit that? Martinez smiled. With Commander Wright's help, yes. We can insert false commands or disable their communications entirely. But we only get one chance before they realize what we've done. Hawkins turned to Admiral Carter on the screen. Admiral, we have an opportunity. Request permission to proceed with Phase 2. Carter's face was grim. Permission granted, Captain. Show them what humanity can do. On the ground, General Peter Rodriguez prepared Earth's land defenses. Soldiers and civilians worked side by side, setting traps and preparing fortifications. Rodriguez had fought in many wars but never against aliens. Still, the principles remained the same. Remember, he told his officers, they expect us to fight conventionally. We won't. Every street, every building, every hill will be defended in ways they can't predict. In orbit, the first Imperial ships entered Earth's atmosphere. They were transport vessels carrying thousands of soldiers. The Imperial troops were confident. They had conquered hundreds of worlds. Earth would be no different. On the Imperial flagship, High General Grekthar received unexpected news. Sir, we're detecting strange energy readings from the third planet's moon. Before he could respond, the entire bridge went dark. Emergency lights came on seconds later. What happened? Grekthar demanded. Communications are down, an officer reported. We can't contact the invasion force. Impossible. Fix it immediately. While the Imperials scrambled to restore their systems, Lieutenant Johnson gave the order to his squadron. All Phantoms, execute attack pattern Delta, 24 stealth. Fighters raced toward the Imperial flagship. They were nearly invisible using technology the Empire had never encountered. Each fighter carried special weapons designed for one purpose, to disable, not destroy. Johnson aimed at the flagship's communication array. Fire targeted EMP missiles, he ordered. The missiles struck with precision. On the Imperial ships, more systems failed. Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons and physical projectiles, but these weapons were different. Meanwhile, Commander Wright executed the plan she had developed with Dr. Martinez. During the 3-second window when Imperial communications were vulnerable, she inserted false commands into their network. Half the Imperial fleet suddenly received orders to fall back. On the Imperial flagship, confusion reigned. "Sir, the second wave is retreating," an officer reported to Grekthar. "I gave no such order," Grekthar shouted. "Command them to hold position." "We can't, sir. Communications are still down, and our engines are not responding either." For the first time, Grekthar felt a flicker of concern. These humans were not behaving like any primitive species the Empire had encountered before. Doi. Transport ships that had already entered Earth's atmosphere continued their descent, unaware of the chaos above. They landed in open areas near major cities, exactly as planned. Imperial soldiers marched out, weapons ready, but Earth's forces were waiting. General Rodriguez had prepared carefully. The aliens found no easy targets, no massed armies to defeat. Instead, they faced hidden snipers, remote-controlled drones, and terrain that had been subtly altered to channel them into killing zones. Back in space, Captain Hawkins gave the order to reveal Earth's true fleet. Ships emerged from hidden bases on the far side of the moon. They were smaller than the Imperial vessels, but much more numerous than the aliens had believed possible. "All Earth vessels engage according to plan," Hawkins ordered. "Target their engines and weapons first." The Earth fleet attacked from multiple directions. They did not fight like the Empire expected. There was no single formation, no predictable pattern. Each Earth ship seemed to operate independently while somehow maintaining perfect coordination. On the ground, Imperial soldiers faced equally unexpected resistance. Nira Vex, an Imperial scientist studying human biology, sent an urgent message to her superiors. "These humans fight differently than our simulations predicted," she reported. "They adapt quickly. They use our own tactics against us, and their weapons, while primitive, are being used in ways we did not anticipate." By now, High General Grekthar had regained control of his flagship, but half his fleet was in disarray. "This is impossible," he muttered. "They are savages. How could they disable our most advanced systems?" An officer approached cautiously. "Sir, we've lost contact with the first landing wave, and the human fleet is larger than our intelligence indicated." Grekthar slammed his fist on a console. "Send in the reserve forces. Crush them with overwhelming power." But the reserve forces were dealing with their own problems. Lieutenant Johnson's Phantom Squadron had moved on to their secondary targets, disabling ship after ship with precision strikes. Dr. Martinez continued to monitor Imperial communications. "Captain," she called to Hawkins, "they're calling for reinforcements. They're requesting their full battle fleet." Hawkins nodded grimly. "As expected. Admiral Carter, the enemy is requesting reinforcements. Recommend we proceed to Phase 3. Carter's face on the screen showed a mixture of pride and concern. "Agreed, Captain. But be advised, what comes next will be much worse. The Empire won't underestimate us again." As the first battle day ended, the Empire had suffered a shocking defeat. Their first wave had been repelled. Their communications were compromised. Their supposedly invincible technology had proven vulnerable. On Earth, people celebrated their first victory. But the military leaders knew better. This was just the beginning. General Rodriguez looked at the night sky, knowing what was coming. "They'll be back," he said to his officers, "and next time they'll be angry." In deep space, Imperial reinforcements were already on their way. The full might of the Galactic Empire was about to descend on Earth. The real war was just beginning. 3 weeks after the first battle, Earth faced a much larger threat. The Empire's main battle fleet arrived, over 500 ships that darkened the sky like angry storm clouds. Imperial Executor Kravos stood on the bridge of his command ship. He was not like Ambassador Jaital or General Grekthar. He did not smile. He did not underestimate his enemies. The Emperor had sent him personally to crush the human resistance. "These humans have been fortunate, not clever," Kravos told his officers. "We will not make the same mistakes twice." The new Imperial fleet did not follow the same patterns as before. They stayed out of range of Earth's weapons. They jammed all frequencies to prevent Dr. Martinez from intercepting their communications. They seemed to have learned from their first defeat. Admiral Carter called an emergency meeting with Earth's defense leaders. Captain Hawkins, Commander Wright, General Rodriguez, and Dr. Martinez gathered in the underground command center. "They're being more careful this time," Carter said, pointing to the display showing the Imperial fleet. "They're setting up a blockade around Earth. They plan to cut us off before attacking." General Rodriguez looked worried. "My ground forces are ready, but if they control orbit, they can strike anywhere." Dr. Martinez studied the new Imperial ships. "These vessels are different, more heavily armored, and that large one in the center, it must be their command ship." Hawkins nodded. "We need a new strategy. Our previous tactics won't work twice." Outside the meeting room, engineers and scientists worked around the clock. Among them was Ryan Cooper, a civilian engineer who had been studying the damaged Imperial ships from the first battle. He rushed into the command center holding a small device. "Admiral," Cooper said, "I think I've found something. Their technology is advanced, but their power systems are vulnerable to specific electromagnetic pulses. We can adapt our weapons." The same moment, Dr. Samuel Freeman entered with his research team. "We've made progress on their shield technology," he reported. "Their shields block most weapons, but they have a fluctuation pattern. If we time our attacks precisely, we can penetrate them." Carter looked at the two men with renewed hope. "Get to work with our weapons teams immediately." But before Earth could implement these discoveries, the Empire launched its attack. This time, they did not send troops first. Instead, they targeted Earth's major cities with long-range weapons: New York, Beijing, Moscow, London. One by one, the great cities of Earth faced devastating attacks from orbit. Millions died in the first day alone. In the ruins of Chicago, Major Lisa Reynolds led survivors to underground shelters. Unlike the regular military, Reynolds commanded special forces trained for the worst-case scenario: occupation. "Stay quiet and keep moving," she told the group of civilians following her. "The Imperial ground forces will land soon. They'll target infrastructure and government buildings first." A young woman looked up at the sky, where Imperial ships could be seen, through the smoke. "Can we still win this?" she asked. Reynolds checked her weapon. "This isn't about winning one battle anymore. It's about surviving long enough to fight back." Across the planet, similar scenes played out. The Imperial forces were overwhelming. Earth's space fleet fought bravely but was pushed back again and again. Captain Hawkins watched helplessly as his ships were destroyed one by one. "Fall back to defensive position Delta," he ordered the remaining fleet. "Protect the lunar bases at all costs." On the lunar surface, Vice Admiral Daniel Morris oversaw Earth's last line of defense, a massive array of weapons pointing toward space. These were Earth's most powerful weapons hidden until this moment. "Charge all systems," Morris ordered. "We only get one shot at this." Back on Earth, Imperial troops began landing in the devastated cities. They faced little organized resistance. At first, they established control zones and began rounding up humans. In the occupied zones, however, something unexpected happened. Instead of surrendering, citizens formed resistance cells. Major Reynolds' forces weren't alone. In every city, humans fought back with whatever weapons they could find. Imperial Executor Kravos was not pleased. "These humans are like insects," he told his officers. "Crush one group and another appears somewhere else." He decided on a new approach. The Imperial fleet targeted smaller cities, destroying them completely as examples. They expected the humans to lose hope. They were wrong. In an underground lab beneath the Rocky Mountains, Ryan Cooper worked with a team of engineers on captured Imperial technology. They had discovered that Imperial computers used different principles than human ones but could be hacked if approached correctly. "Their systems are connected across all ships," Cooper explained to Admiral Carter. "If we can access one, we might be able to affect them all." Dr. Freeman's team made similar progress. "With shield technology, we've developed a weapon that can create a precise resonance frequency," he said. "It won't destroy their shields, but it will create a temporary window to send something through." Carter nodded. "How soon can these be ready?" 2 weeks for the eye. "Shield penetrator," Freeman answered. "Cooper's system might take longer." "We don't have weeks," Carter said grimly. "The Empire is advancing every day." On the moon, Vice Admiral Morris watched as Imperial ships approached his position. His weapons were charged and ready, but he knew they wouldn't be enough to defeat the entire fleet. "All units," he said over the comm, "prepare to execute Operation Last Stand." The lunar weapons fired simultaneously, targeting specific vulnerabilities in the Imperial ships. 20 enemy vessels exploded immediately, but there were hundreds more, and they returned fire with devastating effect. The lunar base shook under the assault. Morris ordered his personnel to evacuate. "Get back to Earth," he told them. "The resistance will need every fighter." As Morris stayed behind to coordinate the retreat, he sent one final message to Admiral Carter. "The moon is lost. Activate the Trojan horse." Carter received the message in the underground command center. His face was grim as he turned to Hawkins and the others. "It's time for our most desperate plan." Dr. Martinez looked concerned. "Operation Trojan Horse? But it's not fully tested." "We're out of options," Carter replied. "The Empire thinks they've won. They don't realize we've been setting this trap since the beginning." He turned to a communications officer. "Send word to all resistance cells. Phase 1 of Operation Trojan Horse begins now. Across Earth, in every occupied zone, Major Reynolds and other resistance leaders received the coded message. They began preparing their forces not just for attacks, but for specific targets: Imperial communication nodes, power systems, and transport ships. In space, the remnants of Earth's fleet regrouped near Mars, seemingly defeated. Captain Hawkins addressed his remaining captains. "The Empire believes we're running. Let them think that. Meanwhile, we'll prepare for the most important mission of our lives." As Imperial Executor Kravos watched Earth burn from his command ship, he felt satisfaction. The humans had fought harder than expected, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Empire always won. What he didn't know was that humanity's true plan was just beginning. The resistance on Earth, the seemingly defeated fleet, the destroyed lunar base, all were parts of a strategy more cunning than the Empire could imagine. The darkest hour for Earth had come. But as humans had proven throughout their history, they were most dangerous when they seemed defeated. 2 months into the war, Earth seemed defeated. Half the planet was under Imperial control. Major cities lay in ruins. The space fleet was scattered, but appearances can be misleading. In an underground facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, a new ship was being completed. It was unlike anything humans had built before. The Humanity's Will combined Earth technology with stolen Imperial systems. Captain Alicia Gardner walked through the massive ship, inspecting every section. She had been chosen to command this vessel, Earth's last hope. "How much longer?" she asked Chief Engineer Kevin Brooks. Brooks ran his hand along a glowing panel. 2 days at most. The hybrid engines are working better than expected." Gardner nodded. The Humanity's Will was not just a warship. It was a statement, proof that humans could adapt Imperial technology and improve it. In orbit around Mars, Captain Hawkins had gathered the remaining Earth fleet. The ships were hidden in the planet's shadow, invisible to Imperial scanners. Hawkins studied the tactical display showing Imperial ship movements. "They're getting comfortable," he told Commander Wright. "Their patrols are becoming predictable." Wright smiled slightly. Exactly as Strategic Director Armstrong predicted. Michelle Armstrong was the mastermind behind Earth's war strategy. From a hidden base in Antarctica, she coordinated the global resistance. Her plan had many parts, all leading to one critical moment. "Operation Trojan Horse enters Phase 2 tomorrow," she informed Admiral Carter via secure communication. "Major, Reynolds' teams are in position. The timing must be precise." Carter looked tired but determined. "The Humanity's Will be ready. What about Cooper's project?" "His team has succeeded," Armstrong replied. "The virus is complete. It will affect their entire network." On the Imperial command ship, Executor Kravos received an unexpected visitor. Imperial Prince Zoreth, son of the Emperor himself, had arrived to observe the final stages of Earth's conquest. "My father grows impatient," the young prince said. He expected this primitive world to be fully under control by now. Krevos bowed. The humans are unusually stubborn, Your Highness, but they are nearly defeated. Their resistance is limited to small attacks that accomplish nothing. Prince Zoreth walked to the viewport, looking down at Earth. I wish to see these humans up close. Prepare a secure landing zone. I will inspect our progress personally. Krevos wanted to object but could not refuse a royal command. As you wish, Your Highness. What the Imperials didn't know was that Ben Franklin, a communications specialist working with the Resistance, had intercepted this exchange. Every Imperial transmission, no matter how encrypted, was being monitored. Franklin sent the information to Strategic Director Armstrong immediately. The Prince is coming to Earth tomorrow at these coordinates. Armstrong's eyes widened. This was an opportunity they hadn't expected. Inform Major Reynolds. Change of plans. The next day, Imperial Prince Zoreth landed in what was once downtown Los Angeles. A heavy security force surrounded him. The area had been thoroughly swept for threats. The prince walked confidently, observing the destroyed city with mild interest. These structures were primitive, he commented to his guards. The Empire will build better ones. Suddenly, alarms blared across all Imperial communications. At the same moment, across Earth, every resistance cell attacked their designated targets. Power stations, communication towers, transport ships, all were hit simultaneously. The prince's guards received frantic messages. We are under attack everywhere. They moved to return the prince to his shuttle, but it was too late. From the ruins around them, Major Reynolds and her team appeared. They didn't use regular weapons. Instead, they fired devices that disabled Imperial technology. The guards' weapons stopped working. Their communication devices went silent, and before they could react, Reynolds' team had captured the prince. Imperial Prince Zoreth, Reynolds said calmly. You are now a prisoner of Earth. In space, Phase 3 of Operation Trojan Horse began. The humanity's will emerged from its underwater hangar, rising into the sky. Captain Gardner stood on the bridge, watching as Earth grew smaller below them. All systems operational, Chief, Engineer Brooks reported. The hybrid drive is working perfectly. Set course for Mars, Gardner ordered. Maximum speed. The humanity's will moved faster than any human ship before it, faster even than Imperial vessels. The hybrid technology that Brooks had developed gave it unprecedented power. As the ship approached Mars, Captain Hawkins' fleet prepared to move. The scattered Earth forces had been gathering strength, preparing for this moment. Communications specialist Franklin activated the virus that Ryan Cooper had developed. It spread through the Imperial network instantly. On every Imperial ship, systems began failing. Weapons went offline, shields flickered. Now, Hawkins ordered, and the Earth fleet emerged from hiding. The Imperials were caught completely by surprise. Their ships, with systems failing, could not coordinate a defense. The Earth fleet attacked with perfect coordination, targeting the weak points Dr. Freeman had identified. On the Imperial command ship, Executor Krevos watched in disbelief as his fleet fell into chaos. What is happening? He demanded. Some kind of virus in our systems, an officer replied frantically. We can't communicate with our other ships. And the prince? Krevos asked. We've lost contact with his security team. For the first time, Krevos felt fear. The Emperor would not forgive the loss of his son. The humanity's will joined the battle, demonstrating capabilities that shocked the Imperial forces. It moved through their formations with impossible speed, its weapons penetrating shields that should have been impenetrable. Captain Gardner directed the assault with calm precision. Target the command ship's engines, she ordered. We want it disabled, not destroyed. In the Antarctic base, Strategic Director Armstrong watched the battle unfold according to her plan. Phase 4, she said to Admiral Carter. Contact our allies. Carter looked surprised. Allies? Armstrong nodded. The Empire rules thousands of worlds, not all of them willingly. Dr. Martinez has been in communication with resistance movements on other planets. They've been waiting for a sign that the Empire can be defeated. Across the galaxy, On planets long conquered by the Empire, word began to spread. Earth was fighting back. Humans were winning. The seemingly invincible Imperial fleet was in retreat. Hope, long forgotten in the Empire's shadow, began to grow again. In Earth orbit, the battle turned decisively. The Imperial command ship was crippled, its engines destroyed. The remaining Imperial vessels, unable to coordinate without their central command, retreated to regroup. On the Humanity's will, Captain Gardner received a message from Major Reynolds. "We have the Prince. He's cooperating. Apparently he's not a fan of how his father runs the Empire." Gardner smiled. "Bring him to Armstrong. We need to talk about the next phase." As the Earth fleet secured their victory, Captain Hawkins looked at the stars beyond the solar system. "They'll be back," he said quietly, "with everything they have." Commander Wright nodded. "But we'll be ready, and this time we won't be fighting alone." The tide had turned. The Empire had thrown its might against Earth and failed. Now humanity was preparing to take the fight to the stars. And somewhere in the heart of the Empire, the Emperor was about to learn that he had made a terrible mistake in threatening Earth. 6 months after the war began, Earth was no longer fighting alone. The capture of Prince Zoreth had changed everything. The young prince, tired of his father's cruel rule, provided invaluable information about the Empire's weaknesses. In the new United Earth Government headquarters in Geneva, President Laura Bennett addressed the leaders of Earth and representatives from a dozen alien worlds. "Today we stand united not just as humans but as free people across the stars," she said. "The Empire believed they could crush us. They were wrong." Admiral Jack Hawkins, now promoted to lead all Earth's military forces, stood beside her. He had seen the worst of the war and the best of humanity's response. "Our plan is simple," Hawkins explained to the gathered leaders. "We take the fight to them. We strike at the heart of the Empire." Dr. Olivia Martinez, who had started as a xenolinguist, now headed the Intergalactic Relations Council. She had spent months working with aliens who also suffered under Imperial rule. "The Empire rules through fear," Martinez told the assembly. "They keep worlds isolated from each other. But now we've broken their information blockade. Resistance. Movements are rising on 100 worlds." Prince Zoreth stepped forward. He looked different now, dressed in simple human clothes rather than royal imperial garments. "My father, Emperor Zarkath, has never faced a real challenge," the prince said. "He doesn't understand what is happening. He believes this is just one troublesome planet, not the beginning of a revolution." Earth had changed dramatically. Cities were being rebuilt. Factories worked day and night to produce new ships using the hybrid technology that Chief Engineer Brooks had perfected. The humanity's will was no longer alone. A fleet of similar vessels was ready. Captain Gardner had been promoted to lead this new fleet. "All ships report ready, Admiral," she told Hawkins. General Amanda Collins, who had taken command of the Multi-Species Liberation Force, studied the star maps showing Imperial territories. "The key is to strike simultaneously across multiple sectors," she said. "Don't give them time to respond." President Bennett looked at the assembled leaders. "This is our moment. Earth was just the beginning. Now we free the galaxy." In the Imperial capital world, Emperor Zarkath was furious. Reports of rebellions came from throughout his realm. His generals had no answers. His advisors were afraid to speak. "How can one primitive world cause so much trouble?" the Emperor raged. "Where is my son? Where is Executor Kravos?" A nervous advisor stepped forward. "Your Majesty, we believe your son is working with the humans. Executor Kravos has not been heard from since the battle at Earth." The Emperor's face darkened with rage. "Prepare my personal fleet. I will deal with Earth, myself." But the Emperor had waited too long. The Liberation Fleet was already on the move. Using the advanced FTL drives developed by Brooks, they traveled faster than Imperial ships could follow. They struck strategic targets across the Empire. Communication, hubs, military bases, supply depots. On one Imperial world after another, oppressed species rose up as Earth ships appeared in their skies. The pattern repeated everywhere. Imperial forces, cut off from central command by Franklin's advanced communication viruses, could not coordinate their defense. Admiral Hawkins led the main fleet toward the Imperial capital. With him was strategic Director Armstrong, whose brilliant plans had turned the tide of war. "The Emperor will have his best defenses around the capital," Armstrong warned. "This will be our hardest fight." Hawkins nodded. "We're ready." The capital world of the Empire was protected by massive defense platforms and hundreds of warships. As Earth's fleet emerged from FTL travel, they faced what seemed like an impossible barrier. On the bridge of the flagship, Captain Gardner received a message from Admiral Hawkins. "Commence Operation Final Warning." Gardner turned to Chief Engineer Brooks. "Activate the special weapons." What happened next stunned the Imperial defenders. Earth's ships released thousands of small objects, simple kinetic weapons like those, used in the very first battle but with a critical difference. These contained the virus developed by Cooper and Franklin, upgraded to affect physical systems as well as computers. The simple weapons passed right through Imperial shields designed to stop energy weapons. When they struck their targets, the virus spread through the Imperial defense network. Across the capital defenses, systems shut down or turned against each other. "The path is clear," Gardner reported to Hawkins. "We can approach the capital." On the Imperial throne world, Emperor Zarkath received the news with disbelief. "Impossible. Nothing can penetrate our defenses." An officer ran into the throne room, panic on his face. "Your Majesty, enemy ships have landed. Their forces are approaching the palace and your son is with them." For the first time in his long rule, Emperor Zarkath felt fear. He looked at his advisors, his guards, his supposed protectors. None would meet his eyes. The palace doors opened. Admiral Hawkins walked in, accompanied by President Bennett, Dr. Martinez, and Prince Zorith. Behind them came General Collins with soldiers from a dozen different worlds. "Emperor Zarkath," President Bennett said calmly, "your empire is over." The Emperor stood from his throne. "You cannot defeat an empire that has stood for 10,000 years. You are nothing. Primitive animals who should never have left your world." Hawkins stepped forward. "We warned you. At the very beginning, we told you to leave us alone. You should have run when you had the chance." The Emperor looked at his son. "Traitor, how could you join these creatures?" Prince Zoreth shook his head. "I joined the future, Father. The Empire has been stagnant for centuries, crushing innovation, destroying freedom. These humans showed me a better way." As Imperial guards lowered their weapons and surrendered, Dr. Martinez approached the Emperor. "You misunderstood humans from the beginning. You saw our divisions as weakness. You didn't realize our greatest strength comes from our differences, our adaptability, our willingness to change." The Emperor was taken into custody. News of his capture spread across the galaxy. Within days, most Imperial forces surrendered. Those who resisted found themselves fighting not just humans but their own former subjects. 1 month later, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered on Earth. In the rebuilt United Nations building in New York, they signed a new treaty, creating the Galactic Federation of Free Worlds. President Bennett addressed the historic gathering. "Today marks a new beginning. Not an empire built on fear, but a federation built on mutual respect and cooperation." Admiral Hawkins watched from the side, remembering the day alien ships first appeared over Earth. "Who would have thought it would end like this?" he said to Dr. Martinez. She smiled. "Perhaps it's not an ending at all, but a beginning." In a holding cell beneath the building, former Emperor Zarkath awaited trial for crimes against countless species. President Bennett visited him once. "You still don't understand what happened, do you?" she asked him. The fallen emperor looked at her with hatred. "You got lucky, nothing more." Bennett shook her head. "No. You threatened our home, our people, our future. There was only one possible outcome." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "You should have run when we warned you."